Hey there, Cosmic Wanderers. I'm Greg. This is the Astral Arkitekt, and you're watching episode 3. Do check out episodes 1 and 2, where I introduced you to the lore of the Astral Assemblage universe, showed you some preliminary gameplay from the mobile version of the application, and then in episode 2, we talked a little bit more about development and the level select screens and how they work to immerse the player in the expansive universe that is the Astral Assemblage. Today, I can't believe how many things to tell you. I don't know the exact number, but let's count them off on my fingers as we go. Number 1, I started my first company. That's right, Astral Assemblage Games LLC officially exists as of June 6th in the state of Tennessee as a limited liability company. This is going to allow me to do a lot of cool things, big boy things like starting a bank account, paying developers the official way, itemizing my expenses, all that fun business stuff that makes, and protect my IP. So yeah, I'm super stoked about that. In other news, number 2, I paused development, sort of. So I stopped writing code for the next 2 weeks to get real clear on what it is that I want for the beta version or the V1 of the game. This is based on a conversation I was having on Twitter with a developer that took some interest in the project and was looking to help me solve some of those problems that I talked about in episode 2, where I was struggling with the special abilities. Someone on Twitter was kind enough to hook me up with this developer, and we have been going back and forth. I'm considering hiring them, and one of the big developments that came out of these conversations is I'm going to make a switch with the way the game is developed, and that means taking it where it is right now in HTML and JavaScript and moving it over to C# in Unity. Unity is going to give me the ability to do killer special effects, in-game analytics, it'll streamline testing and playtesting the game, as well as various other features like multi-platform support and things like that. So I'm super stoked to be switching to Unity, and I will keep you apprised as that situation develops. One of the things that came out of this last week with doing this exercise of getting real clear on what it is I'm trying to achieve with V1 of the game is I wrote a 70+ page game design document, which I'd never done before. It was a really cool exercise. It got me super intimate with the details of my game in a way that I hadn't done yet. And I, in the process, realized there were some areas that need balancing, some areas that need boosting, and just some general areas of interest that could be spruced up. So let's talk about that. I introduced new enemies. I did. I created a new series of enemy cards. So now, in addition to the 7 Archon cards, you have 7 Void Creature cards. We'll take a look at those in a few minutes. In addition to the 7 Void Creature cards that I've introduced, which takes this from an 84 card deck to a 91 card deck, there is a new supplemental deck that will be injected into the game at a certain player level, and that introduces the concept of Quanta Rushes. Quanta Rushes allow you to draw Cosmic Quanta cards. These Cosmic Quanta cards boost the abilities of your aspect cards, as well as providing you an opportunity to defend against damage done through spillover and coalescences. We'll talk more about that in a future episode of the DevLog, as I'm still getting clear on the implementation. In addition to new enemies and cards, there has been a ton of lore updates. Since the last episode, I released a story called Mischief Managed, which introduces you to the Fool card. Last week on Twitter was also Orin Week, where we introduced the Archon of Comet Trails, a master of time and space. Orin is really cool. I think he might be one of my favorite Archons, if not my favorite Archon. So do check out those lore posts linked down below. In addition, this is just a few things that I've done. There's a few more. So in addition to introducing Mischief Managed, the full aspect card's lore post, it's Calantha, Archon of the Frozen Wastes week over on Twitter. That means we'll be learning more about Calantha, her abilities, and her origins. Not her origins per se, but just the lore that really cements her character. And so there's a new story that just went out yesterday, part 1 of probably a 3 to 4 part series called the Salvific Scales Saga. In the Salvific Scales Saga, you'll be introduced to the cold calculating Calantha, Archon of the Frozen Wastes, as well as the origin story behind the Cosmic Serpent in the game, which represents the 2 card of the aspect cards. And finally, the other thing that I've done is I have released a 7-track EP. I'm super stoked about it. In its first 24 hours on SoundCloud, it got over 1,000 streams collectively, which was really cool. And it is called Extraterrestrial Troubadours, Iffy Wisdom. Iffy Wisdom is the name of my music project. I couldn't resist injecting my music into the game. As a matter of fact, music is going to play a big part of the game, right? So there's the traditional soundtrack that you can listen to when you're playing the game. Traditional ambient background video game music kind of thing. But for those more adventurous players that like something a little more rock, a little more modern music or not soundtrack music, I've introduced the concept of the Extraterrestrial Troubadours. The Extraterrestrial Troubadours are characters within the game that have been recruited by the various Archons to entertain them during their council meetings, the 7 spirits before the throne. And the Extraterrestrial Troubadour I introduced first is Iffy Wisdom, my music project. And Iffy Wisdom is a pickpocket and street busker from the material world in the universe of the Astral Assemblage that gets whisked away on this cosmic journey by Orant, the Archon of Comet Trails. And I'm super pleased with the way he was introduced to the universe in the story Mischief Managed over on the blog. So do check that out. And finally, I haven't launched it yet, but I've been working on a Discord server where I'll eventually start onboarding beta testers and potential players of the game, running contests, posting lore directly in there, chatting with the players about what they like to see in the lore or any ideas they have for improving the game. Just a really good way for me to build a community, I think. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing how that develops. I've got some help setting it up so that it has all the proper bots and moderation roles and things like that. So yeah, stay tuned for more information about the Astral Assemblage community on Discord. That's going to be very exciting. So what do you say we spend this last couple of minutes and take a look at the new enemy cards, the Void Creatures. All right. So first and foremost, the Void Creatures come from a rift in reality that was accidentally created by one of the Archons. I won't go too deep into how the rift was created. For that, you'll have to read the Salvific Scales Saga over on the blog. And there are 7 chief Void Creatures that you'll encounter when you're playing the game, with plans to be able to expand the number of Void Creatures as the game continues through downloadable content and general game updates that support seasonal storylines and things like that. So the first is Cthulgrith the Abomination, and you'll notice I've got placeholder text on his card because I'm still working up the lore for each of these characters. But Cthulgrith the Abomination came from the watching shows like Stranger Things and reading stories. As a matter of fact, all of these Void Creatures were kind of inspired by H.P. Lovecraft and the eldritch horrors that exist in the universe of his stories, right? And so we have first Cthulgrith the Abomination. Next we have Dagonexus the Deep Leviathan. Dagon Nexus is really cool. The artwork is purposefully vague in the sense that he's hard to make out, and that's because he absorbs light. But in addition to that, one of my favorite things about the character design, all of these were generated by AI, by the way, using my local stable diffusion platform that I've set up and configured. So there's a little insight into how I get all this artwork done so fast. Dagon Nexus here is a 3-lobed cosmic serpent. He doesn't have a head, he has 3 lobes, and I won't explain how he consumes, but that's not the head of the beast that you see in the center there. That's a butt. That's a snake butt. And so yeah, he's composed of 3 lobes with a giant mouth at the center. And he doesn't eat through his butt, that would be silly. But this guy can consume entire star systems. He is massive. There's Shub-Nagar, the Shapeshifter. The Shapeshifter is one of my favorite void creatures that I've come up with because I just love the style of the artwork that I was able to get out of my AI engine. He is got a highlight in the lore. All of these creatures get a highlight in the lore, but I really enjoyed his highlight in the Salvific Scales saga. So again, plug, check it out. In addition to Shub-Nagar, we have Nyarlathotep, the Harbinger of Desolation, who plays a key role in the story of the Salvific Scales. So do check that out. Nyarlathotep, the Primordial Terror, is truly inspired by Stranger Things sort of characters. Like, just looking at the card makes me think of the not the Mind Flayer itself, but the dimension that it comes from or whatever. And let's see, who is next? Yogg-Sothoth, the Void Devourer. This is a giant millipede-like creature with beetle features. That was sort of how I described him when I was inputting the prompt into Stable Diffusion, and I absolutely adore this card. I think it looks phenomenal. And probably my absolute favorite void creature is the Dreamer in the Dark, who inspires madness in all that behold him. A true tribute to some of the characters in the universe of H.P. Lovecraft. So Azathothros, the Dreamer in the Dark. So yeah, there you have it, folks. There are my void creature cards. In addition to the void creatures, I introduced the Cosmic Quanta cards. We will take a look at the Cosmic Quanta cards, as I'm still finalizing their appearance right now, in the next episode. I've covered a lot of stuff. We've taken up just over 13 minutes here. I'm trying to keep these videos between the 12 and 15 minute range, so I'm gonna go ahead and sign off for this week. I hope you enjoyed this little run through of my little game project here that I'm working on. And do head over to Twitter, where I post almost every day, if not every day of the week, with new lore updates, character information, game screenshots, and eventually here very soon we'll be doing some contests and giveaways. I'm Greg. This has been the Astral Arkitekt episode 3. Do hit that subscribe and that like button if you enjoyed yourself and want more content like this, and I'll see you in the next video.